Good evening, everybody. I just want to offer a little bit of a technical reminder before Councillor Austin calls the meeting to order, that anyone listening, that there is a delay from the audio on the phone to the webcast of approximately 30 to 45 seconds. Councillor Austin, you may begin.
Okay, so we're all assembled, so we'll call the meeting to order. First things first, we'll do our sound check to make sure everybody is properly online connected. So let's start with our councillors. Going around our order of district, Councillor Mancini.
Thank you. That would be start with the best in Dartmouth first, and so I'm here. Good to see everybody. Calling you from beautiful Dartmouth.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Mason calling in from sunny, breezy, beautiful District 7.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Smith.
Councillor Smith calling in virtually from the other side of the harbour between the bridges, District 8.
Excellent. Councillor Cleary.
Hello from beautiful District 9 here on Quinpool Road. You can see the mural at the old Oxford Theatre, now the Oxford Tap Room, which is very different from Councillor Mancini's cloud machine that he has in his background.
So with Councillor Cleary, we've got a full set here, so we definitely have quorum. Can we have our staff introduce themselves, and we'll check the sound there too. Meg McDougall, is she online?
Hi, this is Meg McDougall. Can
Excellent.
You hear me? Perfect.
Yeah.
I'll hop back on mute.
Thank you, Megan. So we also, do we have Erin McIntyre?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Erin McIntyre. I'm the program manager for land development and subdivision.
Thank you, Erin. Andrew Faulkner.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Andrew Faulkner. I'm here.
Excellent. Kirby McInnes.
Hi, yes, this is Kirby McInnes, Planner 1.
Awesome. Is there anyone that wasn't on the itinerary that's also on the line? I'll take that as a no. So I think our next one, we want to confirm that the appellant is online. I did hear him earlier. Mr. Kerrigan?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. We can hear you. Thank you. The respondent, and I believe this is Maggie. I'm sorry, Maggie. I'm going to mess up your last name. Tyrone?
That's good enough. I'm here.
Thank you, Maggie. So was anyone else on the line from ZAP?
Yes, Connor Wallace here from ZAP as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Connor. Is there anyone I've missed? Hearing nothing, all seems to be good. So our first step is do we have any minutes to approve? Minutes of March 3rd. Someone would like to move that.
Councillor Cleary.
I heard Councillor Mason beat you to it, and that was a second from Councillor Cleary, as far as I could hear. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Moving along, approval of the order of business. Someone want to take that? If there's any additions or deletions?
You go, Sean. You go.
Councillor Cleary moved the order of business.
I'll second. Councillor Mason.
Moved by Councillor Cleary, second by Councillor Mason. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we have an approved order of business. Any declarations of conflict of interest tonight? Lots of head shakes. So we'll move to our main item, the hearing. This is the variance hearing. Case 22805, appeal of site plan approval 1392 to 1444 Seymour Street, Halifax. And I've been given a little script here to read, so I'm going to actually just read it to make sure I don't screw anything up. So Thank you for joining us today for a virtual appeal of site plan approval hearing. The order of events for this virtual hearing will be the same as a regular site plan approval hearing. We will start with our staff presentation, give the appellant an opportunity to present via telephone, and then go to the respondent, property owner, to present via telephone. A reminder to all speakers and those watching from home is this is an appeal of a site plan approval. The only parties able to speak are individuals who live within the notification area who registered an appeal of the development officer's decision and the property owner. I have the final list of speakers and we'll be calling speakers in that order. Speakers, please remain on mute until your name is called. Once called, you can unmute your phone and you will have 10 minutes to speak. Once you have completed your comments, please remute your phone and then leave the meeting by hanging up your phone. These meetings are webcast and you can view the rest of the proceedings via the link on halifax.ca. I remind all parties listening on the telephone that there is a delay from the audio on the phone to the webcast of approximately 30 to 45 seconds. This is unfortunately unavoidable. I will add that I will pause at the end of the presentations for that 45 seconds just to make sure that everyone who's following along has caught up and that we're not going to be one behind. So we will start with our staff presentation.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair and councilors. My name is Andrew Faulkner, Development Officer, Principal Planner. I'm here about case 22805, appeal of a site plan approval on Seymour Street. Next slide, please.
Andrew, do you mind just waiting just a minute until the presentation comes up?
Sure.
Yep.
Can you also make it full screen, please, Andrew?
I think Andrea has control of the screen.
Oh,
actually, it's one of our producers, and we're just give us a little bit of a moment there for it to come up.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
There we go.
Here's the map showing the location of the property. You'll note it's on Seymour between University and Coburg. It's 8 existing lots. Next slide, please. The subject property is zoned HR1, which is the higher order residential 1. That's in the Regional Center Land Use Bylaw. We reviewed the application against the requirement of the new bylaw, and the proposed building meets it, with the exception of a variation, which I'll explain in a minute. You'll note on the bottom right of the site plan, there is a bit of frontage that's highlighted. That is the variation request from 11 meters to 11.04 meters for the street wall height. This is a copy of the plan for the property. You can see the footprint of the building. Next slide, please. This is a little bit greater detail. This section on the left, well, centered on the screen, is the area that is 0.04 meters higher than the 11 meters permitted for a street wall height. That is because it is a fairly level site that drops off, and for building, it made more sense to request the variance than dropping that street wall for a few inches. Next slide, please. Here's a bit more detail on the proposed development. It's a 6-story building, 141 residential units. There are over 700 square meters of amenity space and the required amount of parking and bicycle parking. Here's a look at the building. The next slide, please. There's another detail of the building front. And you continue through the slides, a view of the rear of the building, and then the sides of the building. The site plan approval process applies to new building construction and is regulated under the charter and, of course, the new bylaw. The process requires approval from the development officer and includes an appeal mechanism to council. The DO has approved this site plan along with the associated variation request. One property owner within the notification area has appealed the approval, and the appeal is now before Regional Center Community Council for a decision. In hearing the appeal, Community Council may make any decision the development officer could have made in respect to any site plan variation requests. Development proposals of this type within the Package A area of the Regional Center Land Use Bylaw are subject to land use, lot standards, and built form requirements set out in the bylaw. As noted above, noted on this screen, the proposed development meets all the applicable land use, lot standards, and built form requirements, with the exception of the variance, and the development officer issued the site plan approval as well as the variance, as it was so minor in nature. The community was notified of the decision in the immediate area, and one property owner within that area has appealed the approval. Next slide, please. Oh, I think you went one too far. There we go. When an appeal of the development officer's decision is received, staff consider the appellant's rationale in order to provide council with a staff report that puts that rationale in an appropriate context and allows council to make an informed decision. In this case, staff's capacity to do so is limited because 14 of the 15 points, and that's in the appeal letter, which is attachment D in the report, relate to issues that are not subject to the appeal process. Accordingly, staff provide no comment on these matters other than to advise council these elements are not subject to appeal. The remaining section in the appeal notice that could be considered applicable is item 12 in attachment C of your report. That item is considered to be valid grounds of appeal for council's consideration because it contains a reference to a critique of the building design, which could be considered to be relevant to the requirements of Part 6 of the Land Use Bylaw. That's an attachment F of your report. However, the appeal submission is limited to only general criticism of the building and does not include any reference to the relevant sections of Part 6 or any specific components of the building design. Under these circumstances, staff have no basis upon which to assess the appeal and can provide council with no meaningful response to the appeal in the context of the report. It should be noted that staff contacted the appellant upon receipt of the appeal and provided an opportunity to submit additional information to clarify the grounds for appeal. No response was received by the date of the production of this report. However, I believe an addendum was received at a later date and has been circulated to councilors by the clerk's office. In accordance with the next slide, please. In accordance with Administrative Order 1, the following motion has to be placed on the floor, that the appeal be allowed. Denial of that appeal motion would result in approval of the site plan approval application. This would uphold the development officer's decision, and this is staff's recommended alternative. Approval of the appeal motion would result in refusal of the site plan approval application, which would overturn the decision of the development officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for your presentation. I think we'll just pause just to make sure that everyone following along online on the phone has the chance to fully catch up with the presentation. So we'll just wait 30 seconds, please.
Mr. Chair, was Andrew's presentation sent to us?
I'm not sure if it was in the presentation, in the package or not, Councillor Mancini.
I didn't see it, so.
Councillor Mancini, do you want me to send it to you?
If you would be so kind, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure, I'll send it to everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, I think it's been about 45 seconds, so anyone following on the phone should now have caught up to the end of the presentation, so we'll move along here. So our next step, any questions of clarification from members of council for the presentation?
Mr. Chair, it's Councillor Cleary. I just have one very quick question for Mr. Faulkner. So in the report and in your presentation, just so I'm very clear, all aspects of this building meet the current plan and land use bylaw, with the exception of a variance requested of 0.04 meters on one corner. So when it comes to building, I'm still an imperial guy. So that is roughly 1.5 inches on one corner of the building. That's the only thing that requires the variance.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Clary. Any other questions of clarification? Councillor Smith, did you have a question?
Yep. I just raised my hand nowadays because my computer's so slow, so I prepare you for me to come on. So with that comment, what understanding that obviously we're here because it doesn't follow within our land use bylaws, what, as a development officer, what leeway do you have to be able to just say, you know what, this is an inch variance, let's move this forward, or deny it? So just, I guess, understanding the process of what in development officers is in your purview.
The criteria is basically spelt out in Part 6 of the bylaw, which allows a variation of, they can request up to 5% of a variation. In this instance, you can look at the building as a design matter and realize that dropping one corner of the building serves no purpose design-wise as far as a visual impact on the structure. If anything, it would be probably a little detrimental to have to drop that a little bit just for that one corner. Your uniform street wall would be destroyed in that sense. And it would seem like a very reasonable request in this case. So it is subjective to some extent. However, it is based upon experience and the bylaw design intent.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Any other questions of clarification? Seeing none, we will move to open the appeal. So at this point, I would turn to our appellant, Mr. Kerrigan, and if he's ready to go, you would have 10 minutes, sir.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Kerrigan, we can hear you. The floor is yours.
Okay. My name is Owen Kerrigan. I live at 6112 Coburg Road on the corner of Coburg and Seymour. My back entrance, backyard, driveway, and garage all front on Seymour Street. According to the center plan, the planner has the right to grant the building permit and also the right to cancel it. In my written submission, I have put forth 18 reasons why the permit should be canceled. I would like to highlight some of those reasons. To start with, the building would create an overwhelming presence on a small street. It would destroy the streetscape and the livability of the extended neighborhood. It is a flat-faced structure that has not one redeeming architectural feature. It is incompatible with the entire neighborhood. The approximate 140 student tenants would dramatically increase the density on the street, add substantially to the pedestrian and vehicle traffic, and create more parking problems and disruption. Especially significant, it would create a student ghetto with all the well-documented behavioral problems. Among the most upsetting for surrounding residences would be the ongoing violations of the noise bylaws. Outdoors and indoor parties would be frequent. Particularly disrupting would be the students going and coming to and from the pubs and entertainment places downtown at all hours of the night and early morning. Yelling, singing, and fighting are some of the common disturbances. The construction would create a variety of problems and a source of more violations. Huge trucks coming and going, shake homes, rattle windows, and crack inside walls. They also endanger health with the gas and oil fumes, create stress and nuisances from traffic tie-ups and street closures, and create personal danger from their frequent comings and goings. The use of pneumatic hammers to dig the foundation would violate the noise bylaw because they are not muffled as the bylaw requires and would be going for over 3 months all day. The noise can be heard for blocks away and is an excruciating nuisance and health risk. A similar irritant and health problem is the constant beeping noise from mobile cranes, which are in constant use in a project of this size. Student residences. There are a number of property developers going into university cities and towns across Canada to build privately owned student residences. As I have described in an earlier submission for Council's consideration, permit for a privately owned student residence practically on the campus of St. Mary's University. To approve this one would be inconsistent and would also set a precedent for more applications. Student residences are a specific type of building, both in design and use. They are not listed in any of the uses stated for the various zones. Also, university uses are not permitted in an HR1 zone. The impact on health. The impact of large construction projects in residential neighborhoods has been well documented and needs to be taken into consideration in municipal planning and handing out building permits. It should be given special consideration in this case because this will add up to approximately 8 years of construction in this neighborhood, with the resulting miseries on an entire neighborhood. And this is especially true since there are retired seniors in the area who are particularly vulnerable to health risk. While development and building are integral parts of growth of a community, it is also incumbent on the municipality to consider the rights of and impact on residents in development cases. It also entails the use of common sense in the placement of projects. Relative to placement and development, the Municipal Development Act of Nova Scotia calls for the provision of fair, reasonable, and efficient administration of this park. Federal law also calls for the protection of the rights of property owners to enjoy their property in peace and security. Among the offenses considered to interfere with those rights includes nuisances such as emission of noxious fumes, noise, and generation of violent vibrations. To put a large development on an already densely populated small street, and especially one that will create so many problems that it will destroy the livability of an entire neighborhood, does not qualify for appropriateness, consideration, fairness, nor justice. Given the range of problems that this development would generate, including the violations of bylaws, I hope you will do the right thing and recommend that the permit be withdrawn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kerrigan. So at this point, it would be questions of clarification for Mr. Kerrigan. Seeing none, just head shakes. We'll move on then to our respondent. Our respondent.
Hi. I'm gonna make it very quick, and I'll hand it off to Connor, who will discuss the more technical aspects of the application. We started working on this project a little over 2 years ago, and essentially we worked with the city, and we're an open book. Anything that any of you would like to know about the project, where it is essentially on campus, we can make that information readily available, and I have circulated some information to all of you prior. But I think that we're doing a good thing here. We flew in our architects. We've been working with ZAP simultaneously to make sure that the design respects the surround, but also is looking forward and is a representation of the current times. I think that's all I have to say. I have a lot more information if you need, but I'll hand it off to Connor at this point.
Thanks, Maggie. So I'd just like to provide a bit of additional detail and presentation to council this evening. Again, my name is Connor Wallace. I'm a planner with ZAP Consulting, and I'm presenting tonight on behalf of the landowner for this property, for Maggie and for WorkLive. I'd like to begin by thanking staff and council for their continued work on this application. I know this is one of the first applications to be brought forward under the recently approved center plan, and we really enjoyed this process of working with staff through this site plan approval application. Since early 2019, we and our client have worked alongside HRM staff as the Package A draft documents were being prepared in early 2019. We continued to work for them as subsequent final drafts were prepared and brought through the adoption process and were ultimately approved by Regional Council in September of 2019. And lastly, we worked through the process with staff through the Level 3 site plan approval process, which was enabled following ministerial approval, which occurred in late 2019. And over the past 4 to 5 months, we've been going through that site plan approval process. Over this period of time, several modifications have been made to the building form and design to ensure that it was in compliance with all the applicable regulations under center plan, under the Regional Center Land Use Bylaw. We thank staff for their continued collaboration with us, as this process involved a lot of back and forth, and they were able to give us clear and valuable feedback that led to a building design that fit within the built form and design requirements of the plan. For example, we made modifications to the grade-related units. So these are the residential units that are located on the ground floor that have direct access out to the street. There's some specific design requirements around these units, and we worked with staff to make modifications to our design to ensure they met Part 6 of the land use bylaw. There was also modifications made to the building materials, the size and location of interior amenity spaces. The interior and exterior bike parking spaces were designed and adjusted through the application process to ensure we met that design requirement section. Ultimately, in collaboration with HRM staff, they did confirm that the proposed building design met all the applicable provisions of the land use bylaw, including the design requirements section, as well as sections 28 and 160, which allow for this minor variance to the maximum street wall height. And this is mainly, it speaks to this in the plan, it's really to address the sloping condition on the site. This site is, the high point is closest to Coburg Road and the low point is closest to University Avenue. So it slopes gradually towards University Avenue. And to speak more about that minor variance, it was more so to align those floor plates up to address this, the sloping condition, which required us to have a very minor variation to that maximum street wall height at the southern portion of the site. So overall, it's been a long journey to get to this point, but we've really appreciated the back and forth and collaborative nature that we've had with staff over this time period. And it's really led to not only a building design that fits with the center plan, but will provide a much needed supply of quality built residential units in this area of the city where it's much needed. So as such, we request that Community Council deny the appeal motion that's in front of them this evening and therefore uphold the development officer's decision to enable this site plan approval for this project. Again, we'd like to thank you for your time, and myself as well as Maggie are available and happy to respond to any questions or clarifications you may have.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there any questions or clarification from council? Seeing just head shakes, we'll move along. So this is the end of our speakers. So I would ask for a motion to close the appeal hearing at this point.
Move close the appeal hearing.
Second, Councillor Cleary.
So that was moved by Councillor Mason, second by Councillor Cleary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the hearing is now closed. So what is your wish, council?
And maybe, Mr. Chair, I'll put the motion on the floor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason.
In accordance with Administrative Order 1, I put the following motion on the floor, that the appeal be allowed. So moved.
Seconded, Councillor Cleary.
So moved by Councillor Mason, second by Councillor Cleary. Anything on that, Councillor Mason?
I'll speak very briefly, Mr. Chair. The only things that are in front of us today that are appealable is the variance that allows the street wall of 11.4 meters on the south end of the site, and the concerns about the design could be appealable. On the street wall on slide floor 4, it's clear the variation of 40 centimeters is allowed explicitly in the land use bylaw if the grade requires it, which it clearly does. If you walk down that street, you can see that. On the design meets the standards outlined in the bylaws and reinforced by the design manual in our new LUB. I would expect an appeal of the design would be measured against the LUB and the design manual and would show how the design does not meet those rules. The applicant has not done that. So the design, in my opinion, is an improvement over the 1960s nondescript apartment buildings that are there now surrounded by parking. I think this will be an improvement for our neighborhood. So the construction concerns I understand absolutely, and that's why we just updated the construction mitigation bylaw again. And I look forward to working with residents and the developer to ensure that there's a good level of public consultation when the construction mitigation plan is developed. So I would ask Community Council to vote against the motion on the floor and thereby uphold the decision of the development officer. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other councillors wish to weigh in on this one? Seeing just head shakes. Someone want to call for the question? Question has been called. Just before we vote, to our clerk, given that we're virtual, would it be easier for you if we go just one by one rather than the votes on this particular piece of the hearing?
If you want to do that, we can, yes.
I think we'll do that. It tends to be clearer that way. So I will go around in order of district. So we'll start with Councillor Mason.
Am I unmuted? Yes, I am. No on the appeal.
All right. I should have started with you, Councillor Mancini. Councillor Mancini.
No on the appeal.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
No on the appeal.
Councillor Cleary.
No.
And the chair also votes no. So that is a pass. The motion is defeated. So that takes us now. I believe we're done, unless I'm just scanning down. Would that conclude our hearing then, Ms. Clerk?
Yes, that concludes the hearing.
Awesome. Okay, so then we'll go down to 6, correspondence, petitions, delegations. Any correspondence or petitions? Seeing none.
No correspondence or petitions were received.
Thank you, Ms. Clerk.
Except for the appellants related to item the hearing.
Yes, that we've all received. Thank you, Ms. Clerk. I didn't see any councillors jumping up to suggest they had a petition, so we'll go to 7. We have no staff reports. We have nothing in camera other than the minutes. Does someone like to move that?
Councillor Cleary move the minutes in camera of March 3rd.
Mancini seconds.
Second by Councillor Mancini. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So those minutes are passed. That takes us to the end. Motion to adjourn from somebody? Moved by Councillor Cleary. So we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, staff.
Thank
you, Councillor.
Thank you.